Okay, so today we're talking about angle measures for the unit circle, and what we want to try to get down are these angles in radians, the ones with pi's on them as you go around. Okay, so how I'm going to go about doing this is, as you can see, it's color coordinated here, and I'm going to do it based on the reference angles. Okay, so what I'm circling right now are all the 30-degree reference angles. And if you'll see, what we have is our 30-degree reference angles in quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Now, our 30-degree reference angle in quadrant 1, the radian measure is going to be pi over 6. Okay? So as we go around, we can see that the next one is 5 pi over 6. And then in quadrant 3, we're 7 pi over 6. And then in quadrant 4, we're 11 pi over 6. And if you can see, there's a couple patterns in here. One pattern is, hopefully you can clearly see, they're all over 6. Okay? And then there's another pattern that I like to point out in the numerator, and it is this pattern. If it reduces, throw it away. If it doesn't, keep it. Okay, so what I'm talking about is just a regular fraction. If you can reduce it over 6, throw it away. If it doesn't, keep it. So what we see as our first one is 1 pi over 6. 1 pi over 6 doesn't reduce. The next one in just sequential order would be 2 over 6. 2 over 6 reduces. 3 over 6 reduces, 4 over 6 reduces, 5 over 6 doesn't reduce. Okay, did I skip 3 over 6, something like that. Anyway, so we got 5 over 6. That doesn't reduce, so you keep it. That's the next one. 6 over 6 reduces, 7 over 6 doesn't reduce, so we keep it. 8 over 6 reduces, 9 over 6 reduces, 10 over 6 reduces, 11 over 6 doesn't reduce, and we keep it. And that would be the next one. Now, if you kind of follow that pattern, you'll see that it works for the 45s and the 60s as well. So let's take a look at the 45s here. I'm just going to move this up a little bit. Okay, we're talking the 45s right here, here, and here. Okay, if we were in class, I'd be like, hey, what's the denominator in all these? And you'd all be like, oh, Mr. Higgins, it's 4. I can see it clearly. Okay, so we're looking at quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, right? So I'm going to kind of separate those out like this. Okay, so in quadrant 1, we're just talking pi over 4. Okay, and 4 is that denominator, right? And then what's the next one that doesn't reduce? Well, 1 over 4 doesn't reduce, 2 over 4 reduces, 3 over 4 doesn't, so 3 pi over 4. 4 over 4 reduces, 5 pi over 4 does not reduce. 6 over 4 reduces, 7 pi over 4 does not reduce. Now, if you look at it, you can see as you go around the unit circle here, we're talking 1 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4. Those are the 45-degree reference angles. Okay, and now we look to the 30-degree reference angles. Okay, and I'm going to erase these here. Okay, and now look at the 60-degree reference angles. What do they have on the denominator? Very good, the 3. Okay, and the same pattern works here. Okay, so we look at this for the 60-degree reference angles. And I'm going to rewrite my quadrants. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Okay, now take a look at this pattern. We're talking over 3. Well, 1 pi over 3 doesn't reduce. 2 pi over 3 doesn't reduce. 3 pi over 3, that would reduce. 4 pi over 3 does not reduce. We're going to keep it. And 5 pi over 3 does not reduce. We're going to keep it. Okay, so those would be the 60-degree reference angles in radians around the unit circle. And all you'd have to do is take a look up here, and you see we're talking 1 pi over 3 right here. Okay, 2 pi over 3, 3 pi over 3 doesn't reduce, or reduces, so we throw it away. 4 pi over 3 doesn't reduce. 5 pi over 3 doesn't reduce. And so that's a neat way to memorize the radian measures around the unit circle. Okay, so for homework, what I'd like you to do today, okay, is go back into this review worksheet that I posted, okay, and we are going to be now looking at the radian measures around, okay? So I'd like you to fill in the radian measures around the unit circle, okay, for your 30-degree reference angles. Then your 45-degree reference angles, right? I want you to fill in this radians measure, okay? We're eventually going to fill in all of these boxes here, okay? And then go down to your 60 degrees and fill in your radians, okay? So we're eventually going to have this memorized. The coordinates, the radians, the sine and cosine, the tangent, the degrees, the quadrants, everything. All right, very good.